course. So I'm Annie Strack. Y'all know me, I'm sure by now. And today I'm going to do a simple watercolor demo. It's a seascape, and I'm going to go to my share screen. There we go, share screen. Second camera. There we go. There's what I'm painting today. I'm using the Cezanne paper from Hahnemühle. Hahnemühle is the company. The Cezanne is the line of paper. And some of you who have taken workshops with me or just gone out painting with me, like Maria and Yvonne, you guys have used this paper as well. It's a lot of fun to use. It's a very good paper. The one I'm using today is the cold press. It comes in cold press, rough, and hot press, of course. It's a very nice paper. This is the rough. This is actually what I thought about painting, but I forgot. So I'm doing the other one instead. It's a 12 by 16 today. And the Hahnemühle paper, the Cezanne is 140 pounds. It also comes in different weights. You can Google it and find it online. It's Hahnemühle. And I'll set it there again if you want to see the brand name. H-A-H-N-E-M. U with those two little dots over it. H-L-E. The paint I'm using today is from Sennelier. It is their line that they came out with in the last decade that me and some of my friends worked with them on developing. It is 92, I think, 98 shades available in pans and tubes. I'm using mostly pans that I filled myself out of tubes. It's my favorite paint, and the reason is it is honey-based, which keeps it a little bit moist and easier to work with. It doesn't dry out in your palette quite as fast, and it keeps longer in your palette. And it's also very highly pigmented, so it's a little bit goes a long way. And the brushes that I'm using today are the Water Lily line by Dynasty Brush. The Water Lily line is a vegan brush, 100% synthetic. Everything about the brush is animal friendly. There are no animal products in it at all. The hairs are synthetic, and yet they hold a lot of water. I'm going to pull out around so you can see. Do you see how that brush bellied out here? It bellied out. That means that it sucked up a lot of water. Usually a synthetic brush will stay straight because they just aren't absorbent. This is a new technology that a few companies are using to create better brushes. It's a new tech, only been around for a few years. So it makes these brushes about as absorbent and as soft as a Kolinsky sable. It's the closest alternative to Kolinsky that you'll find. So those are the brushes that I'm using today. And I'll go ahead and get started. Now, you'll notice I've already painted in a little bit here, and there was a reason for that. I wanted to use masking fluid on my kayaks. I'm going to put the photograph there so you can see what I'm doing. Here's the photograph that I'm working from. If I had to let this dry. If I had done this on camera, I would have had to wait for half an hour because I can't use a hair dryer on masking fluid. As you know, most of you have taken some watercolor classes before. If you use a hair dryer on masking fluid, you're going to get the masking fluid baked in and it'll make it hard to remove. So I needed to do this an hour ago so that it would be dry enough for me to peel off the masking fluid. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to paint the boats. So I'll paint the rest of the water, but the idea is I'm not going to go anywhere near the boats. That way I can peel off the masking fluid. So I'll get that started now. Colors that I'm using. Oh, and I also have a little boat here that I forgot what I did with the photo. You know, a couple other kayaks, but we all know what kayaks look like. So I'm going to go ahead and use I think this is a 1-inch flat. Yeah, 1-inch flat. And I'm going to go wet on dry. My paper is dry, but I'm going to use a wet brush. So,
Why didn't you stop?
Oh, and please remember to mute your microphones. If you have a question, unmute it and I'll answer. But otherwise, keep yourself on mute so I don't hear your dogs and, you know, the kids in the background and the husband saying, "Where's my lunch, honey?" All that kind of stuff. So I'm going to pull up some of my paint here. If you cannot see my palette because your side screen is in the way, take your finger or whatever, your cursor, move your cursor onto that sidebar with the pictures and move it elsewhere onto your screen. You can pick it up and move it. It's a window. So I'm picking up a little cobalt blue, slopping it on my paper to make sure I have the right ratio. And here goes. A little bit more water. And this is why I use the masking fluid, so I can go right over these boats. And that's what I did here. If I were to try and go up to the boats and stop, I would never be able to do it. It's just, I wouldn't get nice, clean lines. It would look over painted. This way I can just go right over it. Notice the other thing I'm doing is water is always horizontal. So water's always level. So I keep my brush straight as I go across. I don't go down, you know, I don't paint it diagonally or any other directions. I would never go like this. Even if the water was flowing towards me, I would still paint it horizontally because water is always level. And it's important to carry your brush strokes nice across the page, clean brush strokes. Now I've been using cobalt so far, which is I consider cobalt a neutral blue. I'm going to actually switch it up a little bit now. And I'm going to dip my brush in ultramarine blue, which is a very cool blue, much cooler than cobalt. And I'm going to take some of this ultramarine and bring it back here because I want this to recede. This is the background. Things that are further away from you are cooler in temperature, and things that are closer are warmer. So I'm going to use some of this ultramarine right on top of this cobalt and just let it blend in, cool it down a bit. Okie dokie, now I'm going to come forward. Get that little bit right there. And now I'm going to wash that out. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to use that manganese. Manganese blue comes in a hue. It doesn't really come in a pure pigment. It's too rare. It comes in a hue. And it's more of a cerulean color, very warm. But it's kind of like cerulean on steroids. It's much more intense than cerulean. So it gives us the same color, but a much more intense. So I'm going to come down here. And just mix a little bit of the cobalt with it here and there. Now, let me put that photo where I can see it. I'm going to look at that photo again. I've got some reflection of boat. And so I'm going to kind of negative paint around that when I come around with the paint. Mix a little bit more cerulean here. So I'm going back and forth between the cobalt and cerulean. And I'm trying not to touch my masking fluid because I want to keep that dry. So I've got all this white now where I can add in the color later for those boat reflections and the people that are working those boats. Now here's the thing about reflections. Set that right there. Let's see, that's kind of dry. I'll set it right there. Reflections always point towards the viewer. So if I move around towards the back of the boat, so then the reflections would be between me and the boat. So the reflections would be at the back of the boat, wouldn't be the side of the boat. I'm looking at the side, so the reflections always point towards me. The reflections can't point this direction. They always point towards the viewer. It's always between you, and as you move, it moves like the hands of a clock. Imagine that moving with you. Now they always mirror the object though. So if this guy had his paddle like this, then that reflection of the paddle would be like that. It would be a mirror of the paddle, but still it would always be between me and the object. When do you have reflections? You have reflections whenever your back is towards the sun. If the sun is behind the viewer, you will have reflections because then the sun is shining here and reflecting back. If I was looking towards the sun, then I would have shadow here because the reflection would be on the other side. So this would be much darker in shadow. Now we do have some shadow here, but we still have the reflections though. Not a whole lot of reflections, but we have some. All right, I'm ready to step on the water. I'm happy with it. Okay, one more. There we go. A little bit more dark. That's it, gotta stop. Because it's damp. And if I keep painting on damp, I will get blooms. We get blooms when we have more water and moisture on our brush than on our paper. If our paper was dry and we paint on it, it won't bloom. But if it's damp, it's like a sponge and it'll suck the moisture off the brush and then it'll bloom. So we'll just let that dry, and here we go. I've got my masking fluid pickup tool. I'm going to go for it. Let's hope that I gave it enough time to dry. Yeah. Oh, baby, come on. Looks like it's coming up nice and clean. Good.
Annie?
Yeah?
What kind of masking fluid do you like?
Well, at my age, I don't see all that well. So I like a masking fluid with a little bit of a tint to it. I am using I use the Winsor & Newton Art Masking Fluid. When you shop for masking fluid, Winsor & Newton makes one that's called Permanent. Read the label. Make sure it doesn't say permanent on the label because they put them right next to each other on a shelf and they look identical, and the word permanent is in small print, and a lot of people buy it because the one you want is usually sold out and nobody ever buys the permanent, so there's always plenty of it on the shelf. So watch that. This one has a slightly yellow tint. They also make one that's untinted, but the untinted one, you can't see what you're doing. It's maybe if you're like 20 years old and you got great eyes, but yeah, otherwise you want to get this one. Mine rattles too. Hear that? I put shaker beads in it, ball bearings, glass marbles, anything like that, because you don't want to shake it. You want to swirl it to mix it up because it settles. If you shake it, it gets bubbles in it and then you can't use it. So the beads keep it from settling and allow you to use it to mix it easier. When it's fresh, it's easy to peel up. And a couple of things that you need to use to make it easy to peel up. One, the masking fluid has to be fresh. If it's old, it won't peel up. It'll stick to your paper. If your paper is really old, it starts to, your sizing in your paper deteriorates with age and your fibers expand and contract. that makes your masking fluid hard to peel up if your paper's gone bad. So what I do when I buy my masking fluid, I write the date on it of when I open it. This one I opened in March of 2020. And in March of 2021, I will throw it out, whether it's used up or not, because it'll have been open for a whole year. But it'll probably be used up by that point. The more you use it, the faster you will deteriorate it, because the more you use it, the more you're incorporating and adding in bad things to it. You know, your soap on your brush, water, air, other impurities get added to it and cause it to deteriorate faster. So you do want to use it up. Also, the thicker you put it on, the easier it comes up. Put it on thin, you'll have a hard time peeling it up. If you really want to peel it up easy, let it dry, put a second layer on it. Then it comes up super easy. So I'm ready to go ahead and paint these boats, and I'll set my photo here. This boat is green. I don't like that color. I like this one, but not that one. And I do have these other boats, which I will eventually paint, not today, but eventually I'll add those in. Those I could do, no, those would be the same color too. I don't want to have this too colorful. I don't need to, I have a lot of colors here in my palette. I don't need to use them all. So I'm thinking I'm going to make them both the same color. If I do any variation in color, I'll do it in the clothing rather than in the boats. So I'm going to pick out a smaller brush because these are kind of small. Probably not going to use that one. Won't need that one or that one. It'll be one of these. What's this? This is a number 10. Yeah, that's a good size. Using my number 10 round. All right. Cadmium red. Let's see. Oh yeah. No. That's, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's see what this one looks like. That's more of a vermilion. Oh, that's the color I'm using. Okay. So I have a vermilion here. Yeah, that's the color. It's kind of an orangey red. I'm going to go ahead and go for it. Here I go. Cover it in. And I'm going to go ahead and look at it. I want to lighten that up. There we go. Lighten that up. Darker here. And got it almost off the brush, so I'll do this little bit right here. Come around here. We got some shadow. Go ahead and paint that now. Okay, so that looks good. Take a little bit off here. I've got a little bit of a wavy white line here where I went my line with my masking fluid. When this whole thing is done, I'll come back with the blue paint and fill that in. I can match that. Now, back to this. Go nice and dark here. And overlapping now on my blue. A bit more water. I always paint my reflections while I have the color on my brush. So looking at that boat. A little bit darker. And I'm actually going to darken this. Add a little bit of a darker red. This is, gosh. Okay, can't quite remember the names right now. For those of you who know me, I had chemo this week, and it does affect my brain. So I'm at a loss to this dark red that I just picked up.
Annie, that's not a Quinn Violet, is it?
No,
Alizarin Crimson?
nope, keep going. Oh, I could just open the stupid book. Ha, ha, ha. Rose Madder Lake. So got some of that in there. A couple of more. Has things that are closer to you, water, waves that are closer to you will appear wider and further apart. And as they become further from you, the water movement, the waves will appear thinner and closer together. Like if you noticed here, here's a nice reflection, here's another reflection. And then as we get closer, they get closer to, closer to the boat, further from the viewer, they become closer together. You really see it on this one. Here's a wave, 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 wave. So we'll put one or two here. There. Now I'm going to come over one more. There, just a little bit of suggestion. And now I'm going to come over here and do the same thing on this other boat. Same colors. A little bit more water, too dry. Okay, and then I have a lighter. Let me wipe some off my brush. A little bit lighter here. Still too much. A little too dark, so paper towel lightens it up quickly. Excellent. I have to compliment myself. There's nobody here to compliment me, so I have to tell myself I'm doing a great job.
You're doing a great job, Annie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, a little bit darker, and same thing again. Pick up some of that rose madder. Come a little bit darker. And you see how I'm also, I have some of this dark blue here, and it's melting, which is great, because I have to deepen those values anyway, so that it's working out really well that it's deepening the values now. All right, now I'm going to come in, and like I said before, oops, like I did a minute ago, I'm going to come in and bring those shadows down. Water. I need to come across here too. Yeah. I should stop on my head. Yeah, probably. Maybe a little bit more right here. You know, one thing about having this on my computer screen while I'm painting, I can look at it smaller on the screen. It really helps. Well, hey, Jan, I just saw your name pop up. Good to see you.
Hi, hi.
Oh my God, there's Laura. I recognize your face. Hi, Laura. I'm so glad y'all came to join me. All my Louisiana friends.
Annie,
Yes.
I just noticed that your reflections are significantly larger, more forward than the picture. Can you explain that?
More forward. I exaggerate everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
that explains it.
Yeah, I just exaggerate everything because the photographs just,
They
I
don't
don't know,
show
they're,
so
they're
much.
never exactly what I want.
Okay,
So yeah, I do. I exaggerate. I exaggerate water movement, and this is going to be much more wavier
uh-huh.
than it is here in
Right,
the photo. They're
good,
really in calm water, so they're not having these ridges of
right,
waves.
right. Thank you.
Thanks for asking, because I forget to talk sometimes.
Don't worry, I'll fix that.
And for those of you who don't know Marie, Marie's been my student up here in Pennsylvania since I moved here. Marie goes with me to France, and Marie is going with me to visit Sennelier, the factories with Eve Marie in June. Yay!
Yay is right.
And for those of you in Louisiana, Carol Creel, we just had a cancellation, and Carol Creel is #1 on our wait list. So Carol just is now joining us as well. Y'all know Carol, all of you people down there. Carol was also one of the artists who, with me, tested these watercolors 10 years ago for Eve Marie and Sennelier. Okay, now this is dry enough on these boats. I can see a hard, this hard shadow line. When it was wet, I couldn't do that, but now that it is dry, I can come back and layer this in and put that hard line in. So I'm just using the same color. Give me a nice hard line. Perfect. And I want a good shadow right at the waterline. So I'm going to pick up indigo. Indigo is a strong color. I only picked up a little bit. Now this is wet, so it's going to bleed. I don't care. It's a shadow. It should bleed. And I'm going to go ahead and define this water line. Come right across here. Okay, that looks good. I might do it again.
What
When it's
color did you use for the shadow?
indigo.
Okay.
Indigo, which is one of my, I cannot live without colors. It is the
Right.
deepest blue. It is almost black. And it's going to dry lighter because I am using quite a bit of water. And as you know, water is the same as white paint in watercolor. The more water you use, the more transparent your paint is going to be. So the lighter it's going to dry. Adding water is just like adding white paint. Let's see, you really can't see the clothing. They're wearing life jackets, very progressive of them. I'm very impressed. You really can't see their clothing. You can see their arms. Flesh tone. Flesh tone is really, what is flesh tone? Is, you know, when we had crayons, we had a crayon that was marked flesh tone. But really, flesh tone is palette mud. So I'm going to come over here and just pick up some palette mud of a kind of a brownish pink. Add a little bit of pink to it, but it's mostly brownish. Because if you really look at it, I mean, that's kind of just, it's just a beigey brown, and the shadows are brown. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in. That's too red, more brown. A little bit of sepia. That's all the detail I need to do. I'm going to rinse out that brush real quick, and I'm just going to let that bleed over. Just putting some damp on it. Letting it bleed. Oh, there's an arm there too. Okay. That's it for the arms. Oh, they have faces too, don't they? Okay, notice those faces in the photograph, they look pretty dark. So they are dark. So I'm picking up palette mud that is just dark. I'm just kind of it's actually kind of gray. And I'm going to go ahead and put these faces in. Is it darker than the water? Yes, it is. Looking at the water. So I need to actually go really dark. I'm going to pick up some sepia. I went really dark here with the water because I wanted a really hard contrast between the boat, the top of the boat, and these white hats. Because we all know when we're painting, and it doesn't matter if it's pastel or watercolor or oils or acrylics, whatever medium you work with, you know, when you're creating your focal point of your painting, your composition, your eye is going to be drawn to, one of the things is your contrast, where you have your strongest value changes. So if you put your lights, you need to pick your focal point for your lights and your darks, for your strongest values. So I wanted this to be my strongest values. I want to draw them here. So that's why I'm choosing to put dark and whites. Now, of course, there will be some in the water, but this is still going to work out well with a strong focal point. Okay, now for the clothing, do we see a lot of detail in that clothing? No, we don't. We see almost no detail in that clothing. So I'm just going to pick up some, I don't know, here's some ultramarine blue. A little bit too much. Okay, so she's about done. Yeah, okay, and then let that bleed right into the face. That works out fine. And for him, he's got a sleeve. Is that dry enough? Yeah. Mixing. Now I'm going to green him up. I'm going to give him something green. Let's see what I got here. Sap green. Got some sap. Or is that olive? Olive, I think. Yeah, it's olive. Not dark enough. I'm going to add a little indigo to it to darken it. Now, I really could have switched to a smaller brush to do this.
I was going to ask what kind of brush that is you're using. I know you said before, but I missed it.
Yeah, I'm using my number 10. This is the Water Lily line from Dynasty Brush. It's a vegan synthetic. But unlike other synthetics, if you'll notice the hairs, notice how they belly out. It's wet right now, so it's holding a lot of fluid. Most synthetics would be straight, and this is curved out because it's got so much fluid in it. So it's very similar to using Kolinsky. There. And I'm actually going to set that aside and pick up a smaller brush because that was a little bit too big for what I'm trying to do. Now, I can, oops. Pull a little shadow up on that arm. Pull a little shadow on this arm. And I've got a little damp on the brush, just a little bit of moisture to just pull some of this paint over. If I pull too much, I can just blot, like so, and do it again. He's got a little light spot on his sleeve, just blot it up. There we go. So, how are we doing on this? I'm looking at these guys. Oh, he's got a leg. Let's pick up this skin tone again. Put this leg in. Does she have a leg? No. She has an arm here. Yeah, I got that. A little bit darker on this arm. Hands. Okay. Blend. Just blending these white edges. Now, what do I have left on this guy? I'm not going to go, he's got a few little details here, like a little bit of a life jacket. I don't know, do I need to paint that in? Maybe I can put a little red right there. Yeah, put a little suggestion of it. Well, now I got to tutor her too, so a little suggestion. Maybe she's wearing a life jacket as well. Okay. One thing I'm not doing is I'm not going to go after those details, you know, those tiny details. If I don't see it, I'm not going to try and guess. I'm only painting what I can see. If I try and go for tiny details, it's going to look overworked. So move on to those hats. I want those hats to be white, even though like his hat is like beige, it's going to be white. I overpainted a little bit, smeared a little bit. I'll just go back and fix that with some white gouache later. So let's see for her. Let's see, blue. Nope, not cobalt. I already used that. Nope, 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 nope. Shadow color. You know, I'm going to use, I think this is, I have a few colors on my palette that are from Holbein. And the reason I use them is because they're unique. They have white in them. They're mixed with white in the pigment. So like the Holbein lavender, horizon blue, vertiture blue, these colors are not pure blue pigments, they have white mixed in with them, Chinese white or titanium white to be specific. So it makes them very opaque, but it also, every now and then I want to use those colors. So I do have them in my palette along with the majority of these, which are Holbein. I'm sorry, Sennelier. Just adding a little bit of shadow on these hats. Cleaning up these edges. And next is paddles, black paint. Okay, I see a paddle here. I'm using, I call it black, it's Payne's gray. Payne's gray, which is a mixture of black with a blue, I'm not too sure, I think ultramarine. But it gives a nice deep color. And then this guy's got a paddle. A little bit of trim work on this boat. And trim work on this boat. And the last thing, you notice there's a shadow here and a shadow here. And that's being reflected. So I'm going to go, I don't know why I have a gap there. Let me fill that in. There we go. So let me go ahead and just smear in. Don't have to be real specific because it's just a shadow. Water. Now I need to come much darker, picking up some of the indigo. That looks pretty good, I think. Right here. Right here. Right here. Okay. Stop. Always stop before I think you're done. Before you think you're done. I have to tell myself, always stop before I think I'm done. Because if I keep painting until I think I'm done, I will overpaint it. So it's very important to always stop before you get to done, because when you're halfway done is when you're really done. If you wait until you think you're done, you've overdone it. I know that doesn't sound like it makes sense, but it really does. I'm going to clean up my brush again and fill in some of this white now because I've got too much white. So I'm just going to pick up, what was I using? Cobalt and manganese. So I'm going to pick up some of this cobalt, just a bit of manganese, water, especially right here. Just tone out some of that white. Worked out well there because I picked up some of that color. You know, he's got, I did put that green in him, so I'm gonna pick up some of that green and add that in as well. And with her, I used a little bit of the ultramarine blue, so I'm gonna wash out my brush, pick up just a wee bit, just a drop of that. Just a couple of drops, that's all I want. Just to bring that color through. Okay, you don't see it a whole lot in the video camera here, though that color shift, but I will take a photo of it and post it when I'm done on Facebook, and then you can see that color a lot clearer where I added the green. It really ties it all in. Now, all right, how's it looking? I think.
This is fun to see, Annie. Thanks for doing this.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you guys. I'm glad y'all came. I was a little, you know, I'm always worried, guys. Anybody ever gonna, you know, show up? Does anybody like me?
No, I think it's great. Thank you.
It's
Thanks.
fantastic.
So how does my shadow look on the sides of this boat? I know it's hard to compare this to this. So really compare this to this and then match that. Do I need more shadow at the waterline? I think I do.
Not much. That, yeah.
This one I think is okay, so we're right there. And I'm using the indigo for that shadow line, just to define it. Now I want to point out something. The reason I'm using these soft brushes, these Water Lily by Dynasty, which like I said, it's a synthetic, but it's very soft. It's the equivalent of a Kolinsky. The reason I'm using these brushes is because see these white marks, these nice sparkles in the water? If you use a synthetic brush, it's much harder to do that. The more texture you have is also makes it easier. This is a cold press paper. If I did this on hot press, which has no texture, I would not be able to get these nice little sparkles. But it gives that broken effect, which water has. You can see it in the photograph. You have, you know, some white sparkles. And like I said, with my painting, I want to exaggerate that. I want to have more of that. So that's why it's important to use a soft brush and also to have a little bit of texture on your paper. I think this is just about done. I'm just going to touch up, like I said, this little bit here and there where I messed up with my masking fluid.
Annie, how do you know when to use hot press paper?
If you are doing something that you want extreme detail, then you want to use hot press paper. There are also, if you plan on doing a lot of lifting, you want to use hot press paper. And in my classes that some of you have taken before, we do a lesson with the different papers. We do a hot press, a cold press, and a rough. And we do the floral, the loose florals, and we learn how the papers, how the textures work with the paint, but also how absorbent the paper is. See, hot press paper is not absorbent. The pigment sits on top and doesn't soak in as deep. So you can come back with a damp brush and for a lot of pigments, you can lift down to white paper and get crisp white lines. So, you know, that's another thing that you can, which paper you use really depends on what technique you want to use. With me today, I want to have the sparkles in the water. So that's why I'm using a cold press paper, because I have a little bit of sparkle. I could have used a rough. Now, if I use a rough paper, it's going to be extremely absorbent and lifting is almost impossible. So if you make a mistake, you cannot, I wouldn't be able to blot this like I did earlier. Little overflows like that won't blot up with a rough paper. They'll blot up to white paper if you use a cold press. You can take them completely off. I'm also going to clean up this hat here. That's it. There was just that one little line. That's it. That's all I'm going to clean up. And that looks funny. There we go.
Annie, I'd crop it just the way you have it. I wouldn't even bother with those little boats. That looks great.
Yeah, I don't know. I drew them in already. I mean, I'd have to crop it. And you know me. I mean, I have 2 sizes of frame, and I mean, I'd have to buy a different frame, and I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I think when I drew it out, yeah, I drew this out a long time ago, actually, and forgot about it. And then I lost my reference photo, and this is all I could find was what I'd already cropped out here. So I'll have to see if I can even find my reference photo. I probably don't need it. But yeah, I should have just done that, because that does look pretty good. Oh well. Oh well. But anyway, I think it's done. Gosh, so this was slightly, I can go a little bit darker on that face now too. Wait a minute, I'm seeing that. Not quite done. That face has to go darker. Because like I said, it has to be darker than the background. Otherwise it's just blending in. Thought I was done. Yeah, not even close. And I can see a little bit here. I need to just pick up some mud. And I have 2 hands here. There we go. There's a hand. There's a hand. That's better. Pick up a little bit more red. Almost done. All right, now it's done. It kind of looked masked. I lost his chin here, but I can pick that out. Here's a sharper brush, an angled flat. I can dampen it and pull his chin out. There, now he's got a chin again. Okay, now I think it's done. What do y'all think? Okay,
I like it.
good.
Great.
Looks great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.
That was
You're getting some nice comments from Facebook too that you can look at later.
Oh, thank you, Maria. I didn't look at those. Okay, thank you everyone on Facebook for following along with me. I'm sorry I wasn't able to monitor the live chat while I was doing this. But I will answer, I will read those later on today and type in comments, answers to everyone's comments. See a little bit right there I need to fix. Okay, now it's done.
Jan Wilkins says you're done.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you for reminding me. So
Thank you.
yeah, and I want to remind everyone again of the products I'm using today. The Sennelier watercolors. This is their new line. It's been out for at least 8 years now. It's their honey based. Marie, how would you pronounce that?
Aquarelle.
Thank you.
L'Aquarelle.
Thank you. Because I can't pronounce anything like that.
Don't put it on your painting.
Oh, I think it's dry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all right. 98 shades. This is their honey-based paint. They are not the only ones who make a honey-based paint. There are some other companies that make the honey-based. In my opinion, the honey-based watercolors, and there are about 5 or 6 different companies that make them, are superior to other watercolors. They stay moist on your palette longer, and the Senneliers are in the best, in my opinion. And I think I know what I'm talking about. I don't know. I did test them. I thought they're fantastic. They're very highly pigmented, so a little bit goes a long way, and they come in beautiful colors. And the paper that we're using today, I'm going to show it again. Hahnemühle. It's a German paper. It's sold online. A lot of art stores now carry it. The one that I'm using, they have a lot of different lines. The Cezanne line is their 140-pound watercolor paper. They have a lot of different lines. And what I was using today is the cold press. This one is the rough. And it also comes in hot press. And it comes, other lines come in different weights. And of course the brushes, Water Lily by Dynasty Brush. Thanks everybody for coming. Yay, I'm so happy it went very well.
Thanks, Annie.
So I'm gonna let you guys go. It's been an hour.
Thank you.
Surprisingly, this demo didn't take as long as I thought it would. But maybe I'm not wearing strong enough glasses. Yeah, that's all I think I'm done with this one.
Thank you so much. It's great.
I will be posting it I will be posting it on YouTube as soon as I edit it down to, you know, take out all the extra chatter and stuff. I'll post it on YouTube. Thanks. So I'm going to go. Be sure and follow me on Facebook. And thank you all of my friends in Louisiana. Gosh, you guys are the best. I'm glad everybody came. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you too. Happy Hanukkah, everything.
Happy holidays,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you, Annie.